Hi, welcome. So glad y'all were able to come today to listen to our artist, Cindy Sparks. I'm Jackie Wacker, and I'm the volunteer art gallery coordinator for the Point and La Vista. And I work with Brian and Angela. So we are happy to have you here today. Cindy grew up in Arkansas and eventually wound up in Texas. She had a 30-year career in banking and has been painting for 26 years, and as you can tell, she does beautiful work. So I'm not going to stand up here and talk much about her. I'm going to turn it over to her and let her tell us all about herself and John. And after she gets through, John will be going around, excuse me, for questions and answers. So be prepared. Start thinking about your questions now, and I'm sure you'll have a good answer. Okay. So let's welcome Sandy.
Let me see if we can get this back up. All right, just close your eyes. You'll think you're going in reverse here. Okay, now we're good. I don't know if y'all can see me above this. I'm kind of short. How's that? To the side. The mic comes with me. It's seeing this. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here today. I see several friends. Now, when I start naming, I'm going to leave out. And you know what? You're better at this than I am. This is my biggest fan, my strongest supporter, and the love of my life, my husband, John Sparks. So, can you kind of help me recognize all our friends that are here? Because I'll look at somebody and I'll forget Diane's name, and she's my sister.
You got the Sandy Sparks fan club here today. My sister Diane, my cousin Paula, my neighbor Milburn, and Charlene from church, and Catherine from church, and Tori, my wife of a dear friend of mine, Jane Bernard from church. Way back in the back, Shirley Spittler and her son Scott, and her husband Stan, and behind them is David Crane, and it looks like Bob Turner sitting next to David. Bob lives here. Bob was my first boss way back at Channel 8 back in the day. And did I miss anybody else from the... Oh, there you go, Sheila, and Donna.
Yes.
Yeah, Donna, and Glenn and Lee Sale. So I think I got them all. If I forgot somebody, forgive me, and it's all yours, baby.
All right. Thank you. He's better at that than I am. And it's not because I'm old. I couldn't do that when I was young. I especially want to thank the team of volunteers that hung my work. Some of those paintings are really heavy, and it was a bear. And they worked really hard to do that, and so did John. He helped them with some of the bigger pieces. This afternoon, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, how I got started painting, and share some of my early work, and encourage you that maybe there's somebody out there that always said, I'd love to do that, but I can't. Well, I'm here to tell you, maybe you can. And get my act together. This little drawing is going back in time. I'm not sure how old I was when I drew this little bunny, around 5 or 6, I think. What I clearly do remember is that somebody in my family liked it, and they told me how good it was. And I don't remember who it was, but I remember how I felt. And I never forgot that feeling of making something that somebody liked. And it's still true today. When I make a painting and somebody likes it, I'm just so excited. It feels good. It would be years before I would begin to paint, but it's still a little special joy for me when somebody likes my paintings. My husband calls them my babies. I was 19 when I began a very demanding career in banking. I've always worked, and most of the time brought work home. Life was busy. And it wasn't until I was in my 50s that I began to learn how to watercolor. My husband and I moved to New York. We lived in Manhattan and up on the Upper West Side. Our apartment was 2 blocks from Central Park and a block off Broadway. The energy in New York City is vibrant. To me, this city almost has a heartbeat. It's always awake. Something's always happening. And the effect it had on me was to make me want to create something. And I began to think about painting, specifically learning how to watercolor. You see, there's only so much decorating and cleaning you can do to a 2-bedroom apartment. I wanted a challenge, and all that energy of the city just made me want to create. Because we had 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, we had a lot of company from back home in Dallas, and that was great. We wanted those people to come. One of those visitors was a dear friend and a watercolor artist. This is my friend Peg. She was my friend, my teacher, my confidant, my second mother, and I miss her every day. I asked her to tell me what supplies I needed to start learning how to watercolor. She made me a list of paints and paper, brushes, etc., and my journey began. I had a how-to book and a lot of desire, but to be honest, that was about all. I wasn't so much talented as I was tenacious. And I'll prove that to you right there. I brought my first effort today, just in case anybody out there ever wanted to paint but has never tried, because you tell yourself, I could never do that. Well, I'm here to tell if you can, if you want it badly enough. This painting was done in September of 2000. It's pretty bad. It's just paper. It's okay. I had no idea how to paint watercolor, and there was a mountain of learning ahead of me. But fortunately, learning all about watercolor was fun. I don't know if YouTube existed in the year 2000, but if it did, I didn't know about it. YouTube has a lot of free how to paint videos, more than you could. All of us in this room, if we started watching, we couldn't get them all watched because they just keep adding to it. It would certainly have made my art journey faster and easier if I'd known about YouTube if it had existed. That's not how it worked for me. For the first year and a half, I would paint a painting, put it in a FedEx envelope, and whisk it off to my artist friend Peg in Dallas. And Peg, you can see this. It's going to be up here anyway, so there's the painting underneath, and she would put a transparent sheet over it and lovingly write, this area is this area is good, it's cool under the eaves, it's warm here, too much here, all over this. It probably took her longer to do the critique than it did me to do the painting. I waited for those like a kid waits for Santa Claus at Christmas. And those critiques and that little how-to book were how I learned for a year and a half. But I wanted this bad. It was hard to learn that way, but I really didn't care. Eventually, we moved back home to Dallas, and it wasn't long before I was painting with Peg. Now, Peg loved to paint flowers. That was her favorite thing. And I painted flowers with Peg. Every week we painted. In addition to painting with my friend, I took classes from several watercolor artists, and I continued to paint in watercolor for several years before I tried acrylics. However, I got bored just painting flowers. I began to branch out in my subject matter. I painted buildings, I painted cars and trucks, lighthouses and landscapes, horses. On this one, I tried to see how little I could paint and still let you know it was a horse. And for some reason, it's still one of my favorites. And this is Mac. Mac was a big, white, beautiful, wonderful horse that scared me to death. But he was really a dear friend. It was her horse. And Mac has gone on to where horses go, but we still have Mac's picture. I even tried a few portraits. This is a picture of Janet Dungan, and when I saw it, I just thought, I could paint that. I think that'd be cool. But when I went to paint it, I just saw the outfit in red, not black and white. So I painted it in red. In both watercolor and acrylic, my love of a challenge has gotten me in over my head more than once. One look at this picture of my friend's little granddaughter sitting here, yes, and I knew I wanted to try to paint her. How in the world was I going to be able to convey the ripples in that sand? To say nothing of the ice cream on that tongue. I had no idea. But the process of learning as I painting was terrific fun. And I think it turned out all right. One question I'm often asked is, how long did it take you to paint that? The first answer I think of is, I have no idea. When I paint, I'm in a zone. I'm not thinking I'll paint for 1 or 2 hours and then take a break. And I don't keep track of the hours, days, weeks, or even months that I work on a painting. Even if I did, the painting doesn't start when I load the brush with paint or stretch the watercolor paper or prime the canvas. For the most part, I paint from pictures. When I take my reference photos, I'm beginning my painting. In my mind, I'm framing my subject just the way I want it for my painting. Watercolor's the most dramatic when you have strong darks against lights with shadows. If they're not part of the picture, you can that you take, you can certainly add them. But I try to take my photos just the way I want them when I'm painting. I usually begin with a pencil drawing on the canvas or the watercolor paper, but occasionally I draw with my brush. This approach would not work for me with something like a building or something that was structural like that, or even a street scene. But drawing with my brush was my approach when I painted these magnolias, sitting outside one May afternoon in a friend's backyard. Peg was sitting to my right, and 2 other friends were over there with a big old magnolia tree. Also, when I painted a series of birds paintings, I used this same technique of drawing with my brush. My inspiration for painting birds came from the photograph of a dear friend. With his permission, I used his photographs and began this new challenge. These bird photographs were the very special work of Lloyd Grimm. Lloyd has a talent for capturing each bird's personality. It was that suggestion of personality that caught my imagination and challenged me to see if I could capture that same personality. This is Lloyd's photograph of a hummingbird. You can tell he's waiting for something. I don't know what, but he's waiting. Before I wasted a full sheet of watercolor paper, I wanted to see if I could even paint a bird. So I grabbed a small scrap of paper, and instead of drawing the bird, I just began to paint. If I'd drawn those feathers fluttering, the hummingbird would not have had a very fresh feeling that drawing with my brush had. Since the experiment worked, I decided that I'd do all the bird pictures without aid of pencil drawing. This is Lloyd's Roadrunner and my rendition. As a thank you to Lloyd, let's see. Well, maybe I don't. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. As a thank you to Lloyd, I turned those pictures and paintings into a little book. So you can, these are all his pictures, and let's see. You can see, so I thought maybe later you might want to look at it. Anyway, if you do, it's there. The first watercolor I ever painted had water as part of the subject matter. I love water scenes. I'm drawn to them, and painting them can be a lot of fun, but I learned early, water's hard to paint. When our friends Troy and Janet Duncan got back from their trip to Turkey several years ago and shared some of their photos, I was immediately drawn to this photo of the Black Sea. My first attempt at painting this scene, I did a small watercolor, 17 inches by 14 inches. Capturing the water was hard enough in this little painting, but oh no. I had something bigger in mind. Of course, another challenge. It was much more of a challenge when I tried my first realistic acrylic painting in this 3-foot by 5-foot acrylic painting of a boat in the water. It was probably the size. You see, the canvas was 3 feet by 5 feet. I probably haven't mentioned, but my studio is only 8 feet by 10 feet. That makes for some creative maneuvering around as I wrestled with this canvas. And I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm ecstatic to tell you that this little painting sold today. So, I'm especially excited because the proceeds of these sales are going to my church. And so that makes me very happy. And my baby, because my paintings are my babies, gets to find a new home here. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the non-objective paintings. This non-objective acrylic painting was painted on a full sheet of 300-pound cold-pressed watercolor paper. The paper's prepared with layers of gesso, sometimes textures added into the gesso. There's no object to see in these paintings, but there is color, movement, repetition of shapes, contrast between light and dark. This non-objective acrylic painting, titled Vortex, is one of my favorites. Even if there's no object to be seen, I never tire of looking at the painting. It seems to always draw me in. And this little whimsical acrylic is Big Blue. It's always reminded me of a huge big bird. With a little imagination, you can see the wings and the talons and the beak. This non-objective, titled Churning Waters, you can't see the water, but perhaps you can feel the churning of the water. At least that's the feeling I get when I look at it. The contrast of light and dark, the bold splashes of the black gesso help create this movement. This small painting is an acrylic collage. This painting was inspired by a YouTube video and the art of artist Patricia Schreibner. She hates to waste paint. So she keeps a second canvas next to whatever painting she's painting. And if her brush is full of green paint and she doesn't need that color anymore for her painting, she just slaps it onto this second painting, all over the painting. She does this with every color and with every painting. When she's completely filled that second canvas, she finds her subject matter. Now, that's kind of an artist term, so I'll tell you what I mean, or show you what I mean. This is that little painting. It's a 12 by 12, and it's on a wooden panel. It's all smeared with paint, and then she'll take a piece of chalk, and she'll just begin drawing. And you'll say, oh, well, that's probably a head. Well, it looks a little more like a head when she puts some hair on it. And then she'll draw some legs. And I tried to kind of replicate what she was doing. But it didn't look nearly as impressive as hers did. And besides, that was her style. And I needed to make this more my style. So some of these are painted on, and some of them are collaged on. I love this little painting because it reminds me of my friends and lots of non-stop talking and laughter at lunches over the years. I'm blessed to have several of my lunch buddies here, and this little painting was bought a while back by one of my lunch buddies, sitting way in the back. This is a slide of a little boat, a little canal in Bayeux, Normandy, France. Our first trip to Europe was in June of 2025. And since our tour ended in Paris, he decided to take the train to Bayeux, and it wasn't easy to figure out, but he did it, and visit the Omaha and Utah beaches and the American Cemetery. If you've been there or know people who have, you know how powerful the emotions are that are connected with the history of this area. Our guide told us that the U.S. Allies lost 10,000 men the first day of the D-Day invasion. The town of Bayeux is a few miles inland from the beaches. It was spared bombardment by the Allies because the German troops had pulled out of the town as the Allied forces were advancing. As a result, the town is full of old buildings that go way back. We walked by some of those buildings, bordering this little canal on our way to have dinner. It was our first night in Bayeux, and I immediately knew I wanted to paint the scene. Once again, I'm drawn to water. Every time I see this painting, it takes me back to that late afternoon. I wanted to show you this painting in part because it's my favorite, but also because of how it's framed, or rather how it's not framed. I always had wanted to mount a watercolor painting on a wooden panel. And remember, this is a wooden panel here. It's a wooden panel that's painted on. Okay. Mounting a watercolor painting on a panel like this would eliminate the glare that you get from glass or plexiglass. But I didn't know how I could protect the painting. Watercolor's pretty fragile, or can be. if it was not under glass or plexiglass. Also, I love the modern look of this sleek. Instead of having a frame, it has this on the sides. So I was thrilled to run across a video, or rather several videos on YouTube on how to do this very thing. You know, I thought I was the only one that wanted to do it, but lots of people already wanted to do it and figured out how. So I got to benefit from their efforts. After the painting is finished, I spray it with a fixative, mount it on a wooden panel, which is like this, shaped the same size as the painting. And then once it's dry, and you have to weight it down and you have to leave it for 3 or 4 days before it fully dries. Then you wax it, and the surface is totally protected. I want to thank you all for coming today. It's been a delight for me. This is not something I normally do, but thank you for making it easy for me. Just an opportunity to share a little bit about my journey, and a special opportunity to seriously encourage you. If you've ever thought you wanted to do this, why not try? It's only paper, and you might really be good at it. Thank you all very much.
She wants to answer anybody's questions they have, and I got a couple just to put her on the spot here. Listen, I was in the 1st grade, and I got a set of water paints, and I tried, and they all ran together and turned to black. So how do you keep your paint from running together, and why did you do watercolor, and why did you do acrylic, why didn't you do oil like Rembrandt and those famous folks?
I would have done oil. I think it's a little friendlier. It doesn't dry forever, so you can go back in and put in it. And with oil, you can paint your highlights, and you have to remember where you want them in watercolor and leave them white, because you have to leave the paper as opposed to putting in a white. But oil scares me a little bit. You need to be in a ventilated room. It's kind of toxic. So I'm a wuss. I paint from photographs because I'm a weather wuss.
So I'll find somebody else.
Why did yours all run together?
Well, I wasn't very
probably
good.
because you were playing instead of painting.
Somebody else got a question, I come to bring the microphone to you.
Yeah, I just want to know about the waxing method. I've never heard of that. To protect that, to wax it, how did you wax
Well,
it?
this one you don't have to, because this is paint, so it's fine. This is paint and paper collaged over. But when it's watercolor's water soluble. You could put this under a hydrant and it would just lay there. The wood might eventually warp, but the painting wouldn't. But with watercolor, it's water soluble, so it would wash. But once you spray it with fixative, it's set. And then you double set it. When you rub this wax over it, you would think, oh, I'm gonna smear this color. But it doesn't happen. And they do tell you, and I didn't pay any attention to this, they do tell you to start on a painting you don't care about. Just till you get used to it. Well, I don't want to go to all that trouble for a painting I didn't care about. It's too much work. So I was fortunate it worked fine.
So where do you get all the supplies that you need, and how do you decide what to get, and if you want to start out brand new at this, and where do you go find this stuff?
The internet's the best thing. We used to have Azel Art Supply, and I don't even think it's in Dallas anymore. But you can get all you need off the internet. And as I said, the YouTube videos on the internet are free. You take a class from a watercolor artist, and they're there, and there's 15 to 20 other people in the room. That's several $100s. And it's nice to have a live body, but how many of those can you do?
Sandy, is it hard for you to sell your paintings because you put so much of yourself into it?
Well, as I said, John calls them my babies. There's a reason for that. Yes, sometimes it is, and some I don't sell because I want it hanging, you know. But some I can.
Sandy is, excuse me.
Oh, good.
We really need to use the microphone.
I'll bring Mike to say.
When you were doing Shining Waters and you had your watercolor paper gessoed, I think you said that's how you start. What was the very first thing you did after that?
I look at a section when I'm trying to paint water. It's hard the first time you look at it. Well, you know, it's kind of blue, it's kind of green. But I try to get closer into it and see where there's a ripple, there's a shadow. And I try to find those and I try to paint those.
Just a few minutes ago, you mentioned Azel Art Supply.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Azel was an interesting fellow. He'd been in a concentration camp.
Wow.
And he had a tattoo on his arm to prove who he was.
Mm.
That was his name.
I did not know that. Yes, sir.
Sandy, did you keep this picture in your house? I mean, have you kept this?
No, this one is here. It's not in the line of these drawings. It is down.
Towards the library.
Thank you.
Towards the library.
I just knew it was
Or
down the
library,
hall.
Down the hall.
Thank you.
If it shows up missing, you'll know where to look.
I'm curious, is there anyone out there that not only has ever wanted to do this, but is brave enough to say you think you might try? Huh? Okay. All right. Good, good. And you probably have artists here that have a lot of answers to your questions.
Do you always use a matte fixative where it doesn't gloss? So
I do.
Is it an acrylic? Is it an acrylic? Is it an acrylic clear fixative?
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is. When I went on to YouTube to see how this was done, a lot of the videos, they're really good about, they'll hold up their product and show you what they used, because they're doing it to help. So they know that would be a question, and so I just paused it and wrote down and got it. So.
Have you thought about doing one? Have you thought about doing
A YouTube video? Oh, I got to tell you, this is my first stand up and talk.
Sandy, can we tell you we don't believe you?
What's the hardest thing for you to paint? Are there some things you don't like to paint?
I don't know that there's anything I don't like to paint. Water's hard, but I just keep painting it over and over again because I like it so much. If I didn't like water, I wouldn't paint water because it's so hard.
Portraits?
Portraits are hard. I'm not a portrait painter. I have friends who do that, and I think they're magical. I have done a few. For me to paint something, whether it's an object or I kind of have to like it. I have to be inspired by it.
And we adjourn, you might ask if anybody, I don't live the theater in here, come here, and I've lost my phone somewhere around here and there.
Okay, we got a gentleman over here that has lost his phone. Can you imagine that? Losing your phone? He, coming between the theater and here, he lost it. So if anybody sees a phone lying around, this guy wants it.
I just wanted to know, do you prefer to use clear glass, museum glass, non-clear glass? What's the best thing to show your work?
That's a great question. Plexiglass is probably, if the painting is any size at all, it's probably better to use plexiglass because the weight is so much less. I never use museum glass on mine. I typically buy a frame and I use the glass that's in the frame.
Anybody else? This is your opportunity. Kathy Smith.
This is just a clarification because when I was observing some people admiring the art a week or so ago, they asked me, they were admiring it, and they said, is what's for sale exactly what's as hung, or is it a print of what is hung? And I verified with Sandy, what's out there is for sale exactly as hung. They're the originals as framed, and she just added today, and the proceeds go to her church. So just point of clarification.
Yes. And it's Kathy that I thank and for y'all to thank for these to be here. She knew about this and called me and put
She's
me.
my friend.
Yes. Kathy is my friend, and she was my lifesaver many, many, many years ago when our pastor asked me if I would do women's ministry, and I thought, God in heaven, what are you asking me to do? I didn't mind doing it, but I didn't know what it was supposed to look like, so anyway, Kathy helped, and we did well, and we had a good time.
Anybody else? If not, thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Just made smart.